Good evening, everybody, or good afternoon, depending where you are, or even, good morning. Maybe you're in Asia. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Olga, known as Honest Press across the socials. Happy Monday. I hope you had a good day. And I'm ready to recap everything that did happen today. When it comes to national news and global news, and sorry for delay, I was trying to catch a fly. I guess that's the one from Mike Pence. I don't know. So if you see a fly today, that's it. We're just going to roll with it. Let's say hi to everybody. Hey, Peter. Hello. Hey, Claude. Hello. Hey, Tidy Whitey. I love the name. Hello. Hello, everybody. And I don't have Trump videos, right? Because some of you were complaining about seeing a lot of them, so I don't feature them here, nor I feature them in the newsletter that is, by the way, already out. So it's free Monday through Friday. Get your actual news in the daily news briefing, and the link is down here. And I also pin it on all my social media profiles, so please go ahead and read it. I'm not going to recap every single thing today because it's going to be a bit long. All right? So first things first, the day began with Trump talking and talking and talking. And it ranged from just weird stuff as to Democrats are idiots and they spend hundreds of millions of dollars fixing roads, but I'm going to spend just $2 and I'm going to make it all spotless. Then he talked about democratic cities to rot in hell. And just he will wait for them to call upon him to save them. And he spoke about essentially policing DC and how it was infested with crime and now it's just saved and it's glorious. But then on the other hand, he signs an executive order providing more personnel to all different branches of the government that takes care of DC. And he signs interesting executive orders. One of them is to end no cash bail, right? So it's essentially, let me phrase it correctly. Let me guide it through. Where is it? Anyway, I'm going to read it through. Let's actually do it. So President Trump delivered a wide-ranging Oval Office appearance, blending executive actions with off-the-cuff remarks. He confirmed plans to send the National Guard to cities like Chicago, though complained about not being welcomed. He says, quote, it would be great to be invited into a city instead of going there and not being welcomed. Defending against critics who label him as a dictator, Trump said, well, maybe I would be fine to be as a dictator, but I just don't like the word. So, but I'm a man of great common sense. Then the president signed executive order ending cashless bail. That's what I was mentioning just a minute ago. And essentially he threatened to strip federal funding off of any city, any sanctuary city that would be providing lenient bail policies. Now, it is important to note that Trump is a beneficiary of cashless bail. Currently in Georgia, as recent. And this will certainly go against people who cannot afford to bail themselves. For whatever reason, they're detained. And now we see people getting detained. Those are US citizens. Whether it's ICE or it's National Guard or whoever, people are disappearing off the streets. This is just a fact. We see it. People document it. News channels document it. So let's continue. He also signed a controversial executive order criminalizing flag burning. Now, again, we need to step back and take a note that Supreme Court, when it was the actual Supreme Court, in 1989, it ruled that burning a flag belongs right into the First Amendment, and people can express their opinions and their statements in burning flags. Not that I encourage you to do so, nor that you're doing this. But this is just important to note. Then the Congress tried to pass a law and did pass an act to prohibit folks from burning flags in 1989, and in 1990, through another case, again, Supreme Court of the United States ruled that this is unconstitutional. People should be able to express themselves, and burning a flag just belongs to the First Amendment. Okay? But now with this executive order, Trump is saying, well, if you dare to burn the American flag, you will go to jail for 1 year. And he specifically, so he's making up laws together with the DOJ's Bondi standing right next to him. Both of them, I do hope, know that it is illegal, that no Congress has voted on it or will be. I don't know. I mean, at this point, Trump is controlling all the arms of government. So, anything can happen. Trump then claimed some U.S. cities should be left to rot in hell, what I mentioned, but instead he was intervening for the people. He said, the people are asking me to go. The people. I might go to Chicago, but I might not. I might go, I might not. Let's jump ahead for a bit. Then he sends, right after this pity party, he sends this press release to all the media saying, for immediate release, yes, Chicago has a crime problem. Just ask its residents. And he continues, President Trump's historic effort to restore public safety in the nation's capital has led to unprecedented drops, blah, blah. Now, President Trump rightly calls attention to the crime and disrepair gripping other major U.S. cities like Democrat-run Chicago. And then they list some interesting statistics that fit their narrative. They do not exclude New York. They do not exclude any other cities, Democratic-run cities. He was asked about the red states and the red cities, if you will. And he said, well, but I don't see a problem there. But meanwhile, 19 states are directed to mobilize their National Guard. It's just 1,700 people, right, with a stretch. But where are they going to go? The biggest presence of National Guard will be in Texas. Are they going to go to New York? Where are they going to go? If on one hand he says, well, red states and red cities don't have such problem, but he's mobilizing them, are they going to be used? Is this a civil war type of thing? Can President direct National Guard to step into Illinois and Chicago? Or will that be actually sort of a federal takeover? So none of that is legal. Just trying to point that out. So then he floated renaming Department of Defense into Department of War. And there were two interactions with him, fortunate as we are today. One was him and his cabinet and all this. Next one was with the president of South Korea. And we're going to talk about this because this ended in the most hilarious way by President Lee of South Korea. And I have a clip for it. So, but in the first session, Trump and press, he said, well, maybe we should be renaming. Hack said, you should vote. You should get the cabinet to vote. That would be great because we don't want to be on defense. We want to be on offense too. Now, are you anti-war president, or you want to invade countries like Greenland, Canada, whatever? Because you've been floating this idea. And what we see here, that Trump says one thing, and it's very much mimicking what Russia does. He says the opposite and does completely reverse in the meantime. Like, for instance, he says, we're not going to mobilize anybody. And then an hour later, we hear that 19 states have mobilized National Guard. We're not going to be, meeting with Putin. Boom, there is a meeting in Alaska. So in that regard, yeah, he's going to Chicago. I also think he's going to go to New York. I also think it's going to be simultaneously. Let's see. Now, then in the next session with the South Korean leader, he then confirmed that next week the Department of Defense will be renamed to Department of War. To which, rightfully so, he was asked by the press, they evoke briefly, is it legal? Because the Congress has to vote on this. You can't just rename things. He said, oh, I can do it. And if needed, Congress will do it too, because I'll tell them to do it. And that's sort of where we at. Then Trump claimed some U.S. cities should be, perhaps left alone and fight the crime alone. And so it was constantly, and that's what caused the most anxiety for me, because it was constantly left and right and left and right. Meanwhile, I do believe that they do have already all the executive orders, all the proclamations, all the martial law, whatever, ready. We know that he's going by the book, by the Project 2025 book or booklet, and those things were prepared far in advance. That's what allowed Trump on day one of his presidency, the second term, sign over 100 executive orders. Those were not written on the go. Those were written throughout the years. Now, other notable comments, including calling the Ukraine war a big personality contest. He said, that's what it is. It's Zelensky versus Putin, and that's the personalities. Nobody wants to give up. Meanwhile, Ukrainians are dying. Meanwhile, Putin wants to just destroy Ukraine and Ukrainians and ethnically eliminate the nation, eliminate the language, our beliefs, our religion. It's very much different from Moscow part Turkey and all that. So disregard it. It's just personality contest. Then he was asked about Putin and Zelensky meeting, and he said, no, Putin is not going to be meeting Zelensky because he just doesn't like him. Now, here's a bit of a question. When you were meeting Putin in Alaska, rolling out the red carpet and all this, didn't you know that Putin doesn't like Zelensky, doesn't want to meet him? Did you take all these European leaders for a ride? And by the way, today Trump claimed that European leaders, while visiting him at the Oval Office, called him the president of Europe. If you do believe that, then I'm a frog. I don't think I am. But here's a hilarious video, which could be true, could be not, but it's hilarious nonetheless. A lip reading professional sort of looked up the video of Trump greeting Putin and what Trump said during that entire exchange once he met Putin. And I wanted to show it to you. It's pretty entertaining and looks pretty legit too. So take a look.
Friend, my friend, welcome back. Pleasure to meet you again. Incredible. Oh, I won't. I am honored that you could witness this beautiful presentation. Hugely rare. P2 jets. Thank you. There's cameras. Great to see you. It's great to see you. That's all for you. That's all for you. Thank you. Maybe we'll shake hands, Mr. President. It's the media all over the world. It's all over the world. Huh, it's crazy. After you, President.
It's all for you. It's all for you. Now, he says Zelensky is not being liked by Putin and hence there will be no meeting. Naturally, media asked a question as to what's going to happen next. And he said, give it 1 to 2 weeks. The second exchange while South Korea's president was there, Trump says, give it 2 to 3 weeks. Nobody's counting day zero, so forget about it. There'll be nothing. Now, meanwhile, the Russian planes are flying all over Alaska. And they've been intercepted once, I told you on Friday. And since then, third time. They're flying all over Alaska. They're being intercepted by our F-35s. Then they go again. And we don't really react in a way like Erdogan did in Turkey, where he just shut down the plane and there was no tries anymore. Now, we don't do this. So they keep being intercepted and not really questioned as to what are they doing there. Did you forget a charger? What did you do? What are you doing? Remains to be seen. Now, pressed on his economic approach after proposing to nationalize Intel, right? He got 10% of Intel. He answered, yes, sure it is. I want to try to get as much as I can. I hope I'm going to have many more cases like Intel. Well, it's probably socialism and communism. And he was asked during the second encounter with the press that, look, you complained that Kamala Harris is a communist, but meanwhile, you are pushing the idea of state-owned corporations, at least partially. So are you socialist or communist? Like, what is it? He goes, no. He doesn't know what socialism or communism is. He knows this as a word as, a-hole or whatever that you just call people you don't like. It's a label. Now, let's talk about the South Korea. And so I want to preview the meeting and what it's supposed to be about. All right? Because I got that late last night, from the South Korean delegation. They do a fantastic job. I want to commend their press people and press pool. They're so thoughtful, and they put a bunch of information, bunch of what we call color, right? Like, for instance, the age and the background and how this president came from a very poor family, and he pretty much used state programs to get education, then became a lawyer, became successful and whatnot. So it really provides some context to personality because it's a new leader. And don't forget, South Korea went through major shakeups, right? They had, one prime minister got removed that was Soon Yul, right? Or please don't quote me on the name. My apologies, but one was removed. Was investigated, was forcefully removed, and the other one came within a month. He was removed, impeached again, and so this third one within a very short period of time. So before they even met, Trump posts a tweet where he says, maybe I shouldn't be doing any deals with South Korea because they do a major, what he calls, purge on churches. We will discuss that. So the South Korean leader said this is bogus. We didn't do anything. But he did sort of put this tweet out there to make South Koreans, nervous. But what this meeting's supposed to be about, I put that all over social, so I want to just recap. So why did they come here? First, U.S. and South Korea struck a new, let's call it, concept of a deal in July of 2025, in exchange for reduced 15% tariff on Korean imports like electronics and cars. South Korea pledged $350 billion investment in the U.S., with $150 billion specifically for the shipbuilding industry. Okay, so one thing is business and trade. Second, the Trump administration was expected to press South Korea for significantly higher contribution to the cost of hosting U.S. troops. Essentially, Trump wants South Korea to pay for our troops being in South Korea. Trump has previously suggested increasing South Korea's defense spending to a level similar to recent NATO agreements, which is 5% GDP. Currently, South Korea spends over 3%, I think 3.5 or 3.8% of their GDP. So it's pretty big. And lastly, discussion of modernizing the US-South Korea alliance is on the agenda, or was on the agenda, amid growing US-China rivalry. A key concern for Seoul is the potential for US forces to be repurposed to counter China, potentially leaving South Korea more vulnerable to North Korea. So, in other words, the main idea was, how do you protect us from North Korea? And we're willing to do trade deals with you and whatever. The trade difference and deficit, I asked specifically about it, is $60 billion. US buys more from South Korea than we sell. If you exclude software and services and just focus on products, we buy $60 billion more than we sell. Okay? So, and essentially, the South Korean leader, wants to do trade deals, just protect us from North Korea. And secondly, if you focus on China, right, and Trump's Pentagon, Department of Defense or War, whatever it is now, was focusing on China to the point where they said, we're going to leave NATO, do your thing with Europe, but we're going to focus on China. And to focus on China means to redeploy or repurpose the troops that are currently in South Korea to go and face China in case of Taiwan or whatever, if Trump decides to protect Taiwan, which is, if you ask me, a big question mark. And I would say more than 50-50 that he won't. But I digress. So South Korea is very interested in freaking troops. China, big question. North Korea, big question. That's why we're here. And then what happens? So, South Korean President Lee met with Trump at the Oval Office, calling for progress toward peace on the peninsula. Quote, the only person that can make progress on this issue is you, Mr. President. If you become the peacemaker, then I will assist you by being a peacemaker. End quote. What does he mean here is, if you will protect us, because how else are you going to negotiate with North Korea? That is communist, protected, now opened their doors and beaches to Russians, and they just trade with Russians, and they had 11,000 troops helping Russians to conquer Ukraine. So their path is very defined. So you can only have peace if you are strong, right? And Trump says, peace through strength. So for that reason, he said, Mr. President, this is what you can do. Keep the troops. Let's figure out how to make your life better while we are protected. After the handshake, Trump fielded questions on Ukraine. He said, I think it's appropriate that Putin and Zelensky meet. They do not get along well. Putin coming to US was a big concession. Apparently, this was concession on Putin's part to come to Alaska and walk on the goddamn red carpet. We'll see what happens after a week or two. And at that point, I'll step in. You were already stepping in, honey bunny. Trump said he would like to meet with Kim Jong-un. And here's a video where essentially, this video is right after the South Korean leader said, Mr. President, it's up to you to be the peacemaker and I will assist you. To which Trump just says, I can't wait to meet Kim Jong-un. Look at the faces. Here we go.
And I believe
oh, yeah.
And I believe that this is a sign that North Korea is waiting.
한반도의 평화의 세기를 꼭 열어주시기 바랍니다.
So I hope that you will usher in a new era of peace on the Korean Peninsula.
I will do that, and we'll have talks. He'd like to meet with me. He didn't want to meet with Biden because he had no respect for Biden, but we look forward to meeting with him, and we'll make relations better. You'll help that. You had.
So understand it this way. The South Korean guy is saying, protect us. We want to be strong. So there's peace on the peninsula and we're not taking over by the crazy guy. And Trump says, I can't wait to meet the crazy guy. I can't wait to bend over. This will be fun. Then he says, I know Kim Jong-un so well. Only his sister knows him better. But we're very close. And so he keeps bringing that up. Then ultimately he says, I can't wait to meet President Xi Jinping of China. And that point, the question is US in BRICS? Is it BRICS at this point, or us BRICS? What is this, right? And the South Korean leader starts already understanding the picture. So he tries different angles. Trump responds as to, well, by the end of this year, I will be in North Korea. But then the problem, China is waiting on me to also travel there by the end of this year. But Putin is traveling next week to China with a 4-day visit with extended delegation. Okay. I can't wait, right? And here's this hilarious clip where South Korean leader ends this whole debacle by essentially laughing in Trump's face. Enjoy.
정말 세계사적인 평화의 메이커로서의 역할을 꼭 해주시기를 기대합니다.
And I would like to mention that the only remaining divided nation in the world is the Korean Peninsula. And I would like to ask for your role in establishing peace on the Korean Peninsula. So I look forward to your meeting with Chairman Kim Jong-un and construction of a Trump Tower in North Korea and playing golf at that place.
아마 기다리고 있을 것 같습니다.
다시 한 번만.
네, 기다리고 있을 것 같습니다.
So I believe he will be waiting for you.
He got the point. He's like, okay, well, you know what? Can't wait to see you traveling and meeting Kim Jong-un, playing golf, and the construction of the Trump Towers in North Korea. Fantastic. I mean, you just have to understand that maybe you're familiar with that more than I am. I'm not an expert by far. But for an Asian leader or person from that particular part of the world to be so upfront with what they say, you have to arrive on the point of no return. Like, I tried it. Guys, you saw me. I tried to peg the beast from different angles, but that's where we ended. That's epic, right? Like Claude. Yeah, it is epic. It's hilarious. Mark says, yeah, that was about the companies. Hey, Steven. Steven says the hardest part for countries dealing with Trump is he has no coherent strategy other than what benefits him. Yeah, and he's a fan. It's like a fan meeting a villain from a movie, you know? Like, you don't want to meet 007. You want to meet the enemy, right? You want to meet Jafar from Aladdin, right? You're not interested in Aladdin. You're interested in Jafar and his bird. Like that, he's essentially just a fan of this. And when he meets them, he's fanning out. It's just so sincere, believe it or not. Anyway, I haven't seen any readout. Let me check on anything accomplished with South Korea. Oh yeah, got a new one from Asia Society, and they're pretty much straightforward. Wendy Cutler, Senior Vice President, says the Trump-Lee Summit meeting went as well as expected. And this just came out right now. Lee seemed prepared for the meeting, effectively making the case for a strong dynamic alliance while praising Trump at every opportunity. Both leaders agreed on the importance of engagement with North Korea, even if North Korea seems to be disinterested in resuming consultations. Importantly, Trump welcomed Korea's cooperation on revitalizing the U.S. shipbuilding industry, a priority for the administration. So they're trying to pick the good in whatever they've gotten today. That said, strains in the bilateral relationship remain, both on trade and security matters. We saw it. On trade, both sides have differing interpretations of the structure. And I'm so glad that we're reading this in real time right now. An operation, right? So as onto $350 billion investment fund announced last month. As a U.S. FDA partner, Korea is disappointed about not receiving preferential treatment, particularly on autos and steel tariffs. Meanwhile, the U.S. continues to urge Korea to reduce digital trade barriers and provide expanded agriculture market access. On security, Trump's team is pressing Korea to spend more for its own defense. Trump even suggested today that the U.S. should own, not lease, the bases housing U.S. troops in Korea, a political non-starter for Lee. This is new. He wants to own the bases in South Korea that South Korea pays for. As the APEC host economy this year, Korea will be welcoming Asia-Pacific leaders in Korea in late October. It remains to be seen whether Trump will attend, often shunning meetings like this. However, with potential participation by Xi and Putin, he may find the proposition more attractive. Oh, what a shit show. Hey, Rochelle, привет. Hello. Rochelle says, but it also seems like he can't even keep his villains or psychopaths straight. Right, he's losing marbles one after another. Hey, Jules, thank you for reposting the stream. Okay, now let's talk about something that makes a bit more sense. Oh, by the way, before we get into this is a great video. So Tim Walz, the Walz without the T, right? The good Tim Walz, the coach, gave a speech today where he pretty much described the situation. It's heartfelt. It's also real. 40 seconds. Enjoy.
The privilege of my lifetime was stand beside someone we know was the most qualified and would have been a fantastic president in a President Harris. And look, we wouldn't wake up every day to a bunch of shit on TV and a bunch of nonsense. We would wake up to an adult with compassion and dignity and vision and leadership doing the work, not a man-child crying about whatever's wrong with him. May his fat ankles find something today. Petty as hell.
Okay, so now let's talk about something that is real and valid. This was, for me as a Ukrainian-born US citizen, to find out that Prime Minister Carney of Canada suddenly pulled the Biden and showed up at 8 a.m. in the morning in Kiev on Ukrainian Day of Independence. Oh my God, tears and everything. This just meant so much because, as I always say, watch the deeds, not the tweets, right? Of course, his first trip to Kiev, but this was just so important for Ukrainians to see. After all this shit show and dragging and pleasing Putin and all that, to have somebody come from this side of the pond, stand beside them, celebrate independence, support, right? Here's a visual of Prime Minister Carney arriving in Kiev. So take a look. Our time. Then, of course, he met with Zelensky. And before speaking and addressing the crowd, there was a big, of course, ceremony, of course, celebrating the Day of Independence, the 34th day of Ukrainian sovereignty and independence. Prime Minister Carney's office released this video describing why Ukraine matters to Canadians. Take a look.
On this day, 34 years ago, Ukraine declared its independence from the Soviet Union. And Canada was one of the first countries to recognize Ukraine as a sovereign nation. Since then, Canada and Ukraine have deepened our long-standing friendship, a friendship rooted in the shared values of peace, security, and democracy. Over 1 million Ukrainian Canadians call Canada home, which means that every triumph and every tragedy on Ukrainian soil is felt deeply right here on ours. Canada's support for Ukraine is unwavering, and we are with you every step of the way in your fight to defend your sovereignty and to realize your dreams for your country. Happy Ukrainian Independence Day. Slava Ukraini.
So, and those visuals are important, especially after all this treatment and all this, trying to push Zelensky down, trying to question what this war is about, trying to push Ukrainians to give up land and surrender. And it's just so much negativity and so many reasons to lose hope. So his visit is very symbolic. So I really want to thank Prime Minister Carney, his office, and all Canadians. And thank you for your kind comments. I also yesterday was watching this extensive, unfortunately it's in Ukrainian, so I didn't share it, but it's a tremendous YouTube channel by somebody who's a professional in history, and it's very well done. And they were talking about the independence of Ukraine, starting from, Soviet Union up to, and what happened up to today. And there I learned that in 1992, the first hryvnia, the first actual currency of Ukraine, was printed in Canada, and then it was released in 1996. So it is very close, and we see that the connection still remains, which is great. Now, also, Prime Minister Carney again reiterated that Canada will be spending $2 billion on aid for Ukraine. He did announce that through the G7 summit in Kananaskis, Canada, where I had the honor to be and cover it in spring of this year. And so now he reiterated that this will be spent on drones, armored vehicles, and other essential resources. He also confirmed that Canada is pursuing partnerships with drone companies and drone producers inside Ukraine, and signaled readiness to join a future volunteer coalition, meaning that if peace is achieved with Russians, that Canadian forces would be willing to guarantee peace or work with Ukrainians. Now, we need to acknowledge that Canada has the biggest, force when it comes to Eastern Europe. They are positioned in Latvia. They're positioned in Poland. They have trained, I think, over 450,000 troops, or please don't quote me on the number, but in the probably have it in the newsletter. I'll look it up in a second. But they have trained so many Ukrainians, and as well as also Estonians and Latvia folks, to prepare for any invasion if Russia, as expected, would enlarge its offensive operation. Now, when it comes to Estonia, they're traveling. They said that they're traveling. They are preparing. They're training, and they said, we are ready. If Russians come our way, we are ready. And there's this great report by Callan Robertson. It's a reporter from Ireland who lives in Ukraine. He traveled to Estonia during the time when Putin was in Alaska meeting with Trump, and he recorded and reported on that training, and he interviewed people there. And so if you get a chance, please watch it. Then all that we're talking about, and that we're saying that, well, maybe it's conspiracy theory that Russia would go further, that becomes so vivid and real because these people are prepared, as much as also Lithuania and Poland. Now, of course, Prime Minister will also travel to Latvia to visit the troops. Today, he was in Warsaw, and of course he met with Prime Minister Tusk and the new president of Poland, who is very right-wing. That president of Poland today announced that he's vetoing the order to help Ukrainians. That are in Poland, that are in search of work or are jobless, so to speak. They will stop receiving any type of aid. He will also stop paying for Starlink connection for Ukraine. At some point, it was and is sponsored. And so he's ending aid to Ukraine. He will also take a look at any papers and see if Ukrainians are illegally in Poland, and to ensure that they will not be seeking any citizenship or permanent residence. To which, again, in Poland, you have the prime minister, Tusk, foreign minister Sikorski, who are very much pro-Ukraine and pro-Europe. And then you have the new president, who is sort of pro-Russia. And so they have external, internal tension, so to speak. And one of the ministers said that, look, this is, you can you can't come up with a better gift for Putin than to start doing this crap type of thing. So let's see how this will resolve. Now, before leaving to Poland, Prime Minister Carney, together with Zelensky and First Lady Zelenska, also visited this memorial for all the fallen soldiers who fought for Ukraine's sovereignty since the full invasion of Russia, of Ukraine by Russia. Now, also, the defense ministers of Sweden, Denmark, Romania, Lithuania, and Latvia attended the ceremony. And the special envoy to Ukraine, Kellogg, received the highest recognition by Zelensky. He essentially was awarded and honored with the first class, the Order of Merit. And take a look. That's how it looked like. Where do I have it? Here we go.
For me, it's an honor to give this order to you. Thank you so much. Thanks to you, to the United States President. Best regards to him. And thank you for your support. And all your family, by the way. Thank you so much.
Now, you might question what the point of it. From what we know, Kellogg is wholeheartedly fighting for Ukraine within the Trump administration, but he was removed from the talks with Russia in Alaska, also from any meetings with Putin, because Kremlin has deemed him or is seeing him as too pro-Ukraine. So maybe that was the reason for it. Now, global leaders issued strong Independence Day messages from support, including Germany's Chancellor Merz, Moldova's President Sandu, Georgia's President Zurabishvili, Poland's Foreign Minister Sikorsky, Pope Leo, of course, China's President Xi. Well, this was BS. They're aiding Russia and just anyway. Turkey's President Erdogan, which was sort of a vanilla statement. Also, the head of intelligence, UK intelligence, MI6, Richard Moore, and Dutch Prime Minister Schoof, and also many others. And so all reaffirmed their steadfast support for Ukraine. Now, as to US, that's the day when we also learned through Wall Street Journal that for about 6 months, the Trump administration has been prohibiting Ukraine to use ATACMS to strike inside Russia. So on one hand, they're saying, well, we're going to be with you. And it's very interesting that Trump just last week tweeted that this is Biden's fault for not allowing Ukraine to go on the offense. Remember, he was saying, oh, they're fighting with one hand tied back or both hands tied back. And this is not the way how you can win against somebody who is invading your sovereign land, blah, blah, blah. Now, this all, as we know now, happens with the backdrop of Trump administration prohibiting Ukraine to use ATACMS and to use the resources they already have. Now, what came out of this meeting, defense ministers, of course, they were chaired by Canada, because Canada is headlining G7 now. So Anand chaired this meeting, and all the defense ministers met, and foreign ministers met, and ultimately, what they came up with that Norway and Germany will sponsor a Patriot system each for Ukraine. Now, as we know now, U.S. would be able to deliver it in spring. Then there was, other countries pretty much chiming in and buying more equipment from the United States. Trump again today repeating that he always adds 10%, markup on everything. So I don't want to make money off of Ukraine, but I'm kind of am. We're not spending anything. I wonder what to end, but ultimately I'm making money on it. Okay, so far so good. Now, German Chancellor Merz said that, look, don't be too optimistic in a very German, straightforward fashion. He said, look, this is just the first 200 meters of a 10-kilometer marathon. And if you know any metric numbers, this is just tiny bit. And we know, there's no progress. Honestly, there's no progress. There's just regress for Ukraine because it can't strike inside Russia. Of course, Ukraine now has Flamingo, that goes very far inside Russia and brings already great results. They also did a Typhoon, I think, new missile that goes over 1,000 kilometers inside Russia. They use it very successfully. But when it comes to American help and aid, there is regression. There is no progress. So, in other global developments, let's cruise through it. Russia, China, the Kremlin confirmed Putin is traveling to China for 4 days next week. As to Armenia, the Russian MiG, right, the Russian warplane, crashed into metal pole and fence in Yerevan, in Armenia, while Armenian trucks of peaches and plums were turned back at the Russian border under vague claims that they are not organic. MP Garnik Danilyan called it political and said, "Congratulations on the Trump road." Now, Ukraine, as I mentioned, is striking Russia. Ukrainian drones hit the Ust-Luga port in Syzran oil refinery, which processes 3% of Russia's fuel. The attack sparked fires and disrupted exports of oil, gas, coal, fertilizers, and grain. Now, Swedish and NATO support. Sweden delivered ASC-890 airborne surveillance aircraft, while Norway and Germany, as I mentioned, pledged Patriot systems. Ukraine unveiled its 1,000-kilometer-long Neptune missile. So not Typhoon, Neptune. All right, corrected. As to Moscow explosion, there was an explosion yesterday in the center of Moscow, which is sort of the big center where the kids are playing and, like Chuck E. Cheese. Is that what we have? Sorry. Anyway, so it's a big center where kids go with parents, specifically on the weekends. Very crowded, middle of Moscow. So a gas cylinder, this is per Moscow, blew up inside the Central Children's Store, opposite of FSB headquarters. And it injured 3 and killed 1. And out of those 3, was an FSB officer, Alexei Titov, who remains in induced coma. So apparently one source says his leg blew up, other source says his both hands blew up. Russians say that this was a gas cylinder, but any reasonable person would question, if there's anything more behind it. And what I mentioned about Poland, President Nawrocki vetoed 8 extensions for Ukrainian refugees, limiting benefits to those employed. He promised tougher citizenship rules and penalties for illegal crossings. Critics warn Ukraine may lose Starlink internet access. Deputy PM Gavkovsky called it a better gift for Putin troops Putin troops then cutting off Ukraine from internet. So essentially you are aiding Russian troops. And as to diplomatic rift, so remember Ukraine had a fantastic general, the commander-in-chief, is separate, right, from president, commander-in-chief in Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhny. Beginning of the war, he was the one that united the army, expanded it, put it on a successful path, made sure Russians are not taking Kiev within hours or days and whatnot, right? And then he became very, very popular and was seen sort of as the hero of the nation, and Zelensky did not really like it. So he was removed. He was then sent to London as the ambassador of Ukraine to the UK. And so he's in London, obviously. And remember when Vance was traveling to UK, vacation, one vacation, another vacation, right? And so it turns out that Vance's team tried all diplomatic efforts to essentially have a photo op with Valery Zaluzhny, to have a conversation with him and whatnot. Zaluzhny, known for his character, he called Zelensky and said, "I'm not going to meet with this guy. I know how he treated you in the Oval Office. I have no business to discuss with him. No." And so J.D. Vance and his team did not succeed in securing that meeting. And that's okay. Last thing I wanted to share is that last thing on this is that Prime Minister Carney also met with the, of course, the Prime Minister Tusk in Poland, but he also met with the Canadian troops that are stationed in Warsaw. So take a look. Yeah, and I feel you, Stephen. Yeah, I mean, listening to Trump, who has bankruptcies, I always sort of have a joke. I mentioned that we are his seventh bankruptcy, and we kind of are now the subject of it. Certainly, right? I mean, resumes don't matter these days, so people get jobs because of their social media following, and I guess that's the job he got, right? Popular through a television show where he played a successful businessman, and here we go. Now, as to Pentagon, if you perhaps paid attention, you know that the leaders within Pentagon have been removed one by one by one, especially last week. Now, lately, Defense Secretary Haxas has dismissed the head of Defense Intelligence Agency without providing a reason. The move comes after recent DIA assessment concluded that U.S. strikes set back Iran's nuclear program by months, but did not eliminate it, contradicting President Trump's claims. The firing is the latest in the series of high-level removals at the Defense Department under Haxas. And if you're interested, I'll post everybody who has been removed, and if you read it, you're like, oh my God. Now, last week, Trump announced that he is willing to beautify our government systems, websites, and so forth, so on and so forth. So now he has tapped the co-founder of Airbnb, Joe Gebbia, to overhaul governmental websites. Joe Gebbia posted on Twitter that he envisions our digital presence as sort of like an Apple store, he says. Has to look luxurious, be simple in use, and be very, sort of forward thinking. There will be a lot of money spent. What it's going to result in is a big question mark. Joe Gebbia is a billionaire. He has $8.8 billion. It's another billionaire joining the Trump administration. As to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was detained by ICE, right? And then he was sent to El Salvador. He got back ultimately through, of course, the efforts of senators, but also through media presence and coverage. He then returned ultimately to the United States on Friday after being wrongfully detained. But then Abrego Garcia had only just returned to U.S., and despite being born in Panama, the Trump administration previously deported him to El Salvador and is now reportedly planning to send him to Uganda, a country that has absolutely nothing to do with him. The latest was that the federal judge prohibited Trump administration to deport him to Uganda, and as a country of his choice to be deported to, he chose Costa Rica. So let's see what this will result in. But this is one of many cases. It's not just one person. It's just got the most attention, or one of the biggest cases covered. Now, there is interesting observation that despite declining attendance, now churches construction has been surging, right? It went up by 17% in the past 12 months. And also what's interesting is that the churches are now adding childcare and coffee shops in it, trying to make it sort of like a culture centers where people would go to daily rather than a church, as we know. So an interesting shift. Then another shift is, remember, Trump has been shaking up universities. Now he's going to colleges. He instructed the education department to require schools to report applicant data by race to monitor compliance and ensure race-based preferences are not being used. This has little to do with race-based preferences. It has all to do with DI and pretty much eliminating any mention of slavery or any factual history as we know of, and replacing it with something more vanilla and something more that fits the narrative of the current administration. For that reason, I will be traveling to Smithsonian and other institutions and creating footage and filming content, showcasing those exhibitions that will be removed soon, just so we create this sort of content that we host online, and I also make sure to keep it offline as well, so we know what we had, because I wholeheartedly have this feeling, an intuitive just feeling, that within months we will forget what we had. because it's easy to postpone any visit. And I mean, how many museums can you visit, honestly? I mean, how much time do you have? But it is important to document what we had, because I feel that with those portraits that are now hanging outdoors at the White House and things not being valued and being destroyed and removed, we are headed in a very particular direction. And for that reason, it's important to document what we had. Now, there's a big issue. There's a heat wave that's fueling wildfires in California and Oregon. If you are there, know that we are with you, but please, please be safe and listen to your local authorities. A dangerous heat wave grips the western U.S. Wildfires have erupted in California's Napa County and central Oregon, prompting widespread evacuations. In Northern California's wine country, the picket fire has scorched 10 square miles and remains only 11% contained, despite the efforts of over 1,200 firefighters and 10 helicopters. Meanwhile, Oregon's flat fire has spread to 29 square miles across Jefferson County. Firefighters face challenging conditions, including steep terrain, low humidity, and triple-digit heat, which continue to hamper containment efforts. And the latest news I saw, because it's really wine county, so it's going to have a lot of negative effects because of it. Now, the U.S. Department of Interior has ordered Ørsted, this is a company that waited 9 years to get an approval to build essentially a project that is called Revolution Wind on Rhode Island. They waited 9 years, and then ultimately for 9 years, and then ultimately the Biden administration issued an approval allowing them to build this project, which essentially was meant to power 350,000 homes. And so this is almost done. I mean, they claim 85% done, but it has become the latest victim of Trump administration's aggressive stance against renewable energy and windmills. He hates windmills because that goes back to his arguments regarding his golf courses and windmills and whatever. But ultimately, he now prohibits Ørsted to continue. The administration is instructing them to get rid of everything, which is adding financial issues to already struggling company, because they raised $9.4 billion to build this, right? And also wind power remains nation's largest renewable energy source, supplying 10% of U.S. electricity, and this is already in 2023. So they're posting everywhere. They're pretty much, distraught and just don't really know what to do, because the investors are demanding money. They will not get any returns, and also now destroying this will also cost, right? So into quick news, really quick, in the bold move against GOP and their redistricting in Texas, Governor Wes Moore of Maryland announced he's considering redrawing Maryland's congressional maps to counterbalance partisan districting nationwide. Now, of course, Trump talked about him, said that, off the record, he said, "You're the best president I've ever had," to which then Wes Moore retweeted this and said, LOL. So I have a hard time believing that this is true. Now, Amtrak Next Gen Acela, the fastest train in U.S. history, will begin servicing the Northeast Corridor, D.C., NYC, and Boston. It features 27% more seating and hits speeds of up to 160 miles per hour. Now, over 2,200 National Guard troops are now in Washington, D.C. as part of Trump's domestic crackdown, and now most of them are beginning to carry weapons, to which Haxas then praised Trump's decision today at the Oval Office. Now, Trump threatened to investigate ex-New Jersey Governor Chris Christie over a 2013 Bridgegate scandal after Christie publicly criticized Trump's use of the DOJ for his personal agenda. Now, as to China's influence in New York Times investigation, this is interesting, reveals that the Chinese consulate in Manhattan, New York, has mobilized community groups to undermine local U.S. politicians critical of Beijing. Maybe Trump should look into that. China's real estate collapse. So Evergrande, the major Chinese developer and symbol of the country's real estate collapse, has been now officially delisted from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And as to Starship, Musk was aiming to test his Starship that he wants to travel to Mars ultimately yesterday, and it was delayed, citing technical concerns. So at least we saved on that explosion. Now, again, the most of the global news are in the newsletter, so you can skip everything, just go to global news and read it. The last thing I want to discuss here real quick is are the details of the Canada and Poland agreement, because they did sign an agreement today. And essentially, the agreement goes over 3 categories. One is economic cooperation, defense and security cooperation, and border security and counter-crime collaboration. So let's start with the latter. The agreement strengthens border security and counter-crime collaboration, focusing on tackling human trafficking, narcotics smuggling, and threats to critical infrastructure. Now, to ensure the progress, they created high-level steering group that will coordinate implementation, reporting directly to both governments. Now, as to defense and security cooperation, they will intensify through NATO and EU frameworks. The 2 nations will encourage industry-to-industry partnerships, pursue joint procurements, and expand collaboration in advanced technologies, including radars, AI, ISR systems, and drone platforms. Canada and Poland also pledged stronger supply chain resilience and cooperation on cyber defense, maritime security, intelligence sharing, and countering foreign information manipulation. And of course, both of them also signed that they are supporting Ukraine. Now, this is the Prime Minister Tusk of Poland. And then the economic cooperation, they will expand across several key sectors. Energy is a top priority, with both governments pledging joint initiatives in critical minerals, LNG, offshore wind, and nuclear development, including small modular reactors and Poland's planned second nuclear power plant. A Polish nuclear trade mission to Canada is scheduled for November, and aviation ties will also grow following LOT Polish airline purchase of Airbus A220 aircraft made in Quebec, while Canada and Poland will plan further collaboration in aerospace technologies, simulation training, and civil aviation safety. So again, all these details are in the newsletter, and there, when it comes to global news, you'll find out about Israeli airstrike on presidential palace in Yemen, which sort of is shaking up that part of the world. You'll also learn about the typhoon that is causing mass evacuation in Vietnam, and much more. Last video I want to show you is, as discussed on Friday, the Oscar-winning director Woody Allen participated in Moscow Film Week. Well, this is how it looked like, and then I'm going to share what he also said there. So let's take a look. Yeah, here we go.
I'm looking forward to it. I've been to Moscow. I've been to St. Petersburg. I've someone who's always enjoyed Russian cinema. I think I had the pleasure of meeting Sergei Bondarchuk some years ago in New York. I saw the Russian War and Peace, which was 7 or 8 hours long. I saw it in one day, and it was a great experience for me. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
So now it's in Russian. Давайте перейдем на русский и давайте перейдем к вопросу.
Yeah, let's not turn into Russian, but he essentially suggested that he might return to Russia to, quote, film a movie on how good you feel in Moscow and St. Petersburg. Ukraine's foreign ministry called his comments as a disgrace and an insult to Ukrainian artists harmed or killed during Russia's ongoing aggression. And here we are, folks. That's it for national and global news. Again, go to honestnetwork.com, Get your newsletter. It's all pinned also all over social media. Read the actual news, skip it, go read your global news about the typhoons and everything that happens on the Asian or that part of the world, right, in the East. All right, that's it. So I'll see you tomorrow again at 5 p.m. So that's where we're going to recap. I don't know what's happening at the White House. They don't release it until very late night. So I'm going to post what's in the White House tomorrow. What we do know is that Ukraine has met with Kellogg today, and they're meeting with the full, whatever that means, delegation from United States again in Kiev tomorrow. So let's see who that will be, part of that whatever. The main idea there is to discuss or prepare for the potential meeting with Putin, but we do know there will be no meeting with Putin, so all of this is just BS. Okay? That's it. Thank you, Claude. Thank you, Tidy Whitey. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Steven. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. Jules Refine, thank you for sharing this. If you're watching this on YouTube or wherever, please click like and subscribe so people can get this video through the algorithm, presented to them or at least suggested. So I would truly appreciate it. And if you're not subscribed to Daily Newsletter, please get it. It's free. And of course, thank you for your support and everything. All right. So keep your head on a swivel, keep a positive, mood and mode, because this is a long-term situation here. And main thing that we will be happy and healthy when all of this is better. Okay. All right. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.